I don't think I haven't heard you speak, but you seem you're a very spiritual person.
Yeah.
When did this come about? Have you always been like this?
Yeah. Well, I didn't grow up in the church.
Okay.
When I was about 12, I started going to a youth group that my acting coach, shout out to Carnetta Jones, was my acting coach from age 11 to 26. And she was a youth group leader.
Okay.
And it was called God's Gang, which is now the name of my production
I ain't gonna
company.
front. Megan Good is aging
And,
like wine.
I had some friends. There were two
She
girls
still
in
got it
school
going on,
especially
man.
who looked out for me when people would try to bully me. And those two girls and one of their older sister and a 5-year-old girl they were babysitting and another friend of theirs left youth group that night and got into a car accident. And their friend passed away. The little girl who's about to turn 6 passed away. One of the girl's older sister, she passed away too. That's right. And then the girl whose younger sister it was that used to look out for me, she got severe brain damage. And the other girl who used to look out for me had to get reconstructive surgery and all this stuff. But we went to this, I forget what it's called, where you kind of like go out into the, woods and you camp and stuff and you pray and blah, blah.
Right.
And I remember that night her like calling out to God and crying and saying, why? And then she got saved that night. And so I was just like, well, how do you go to God instead of away from God when something like that happens?
Right.
And it just made me curious. And because I had so much respect for her and because she had looked out for me the way that she had, shout out to Alicia, wherever you are in the world, love you. It kind of put me on my path. Her example did. And so after that, I became a Christian. And then I was like a Bible stomper and like super religious and very judgmental. I remember when my sister lost her virginity. I was 14, she was 16. And I went to her, I was like, I just don't want you to go to hell. Like, I was that kid. None of my friends told me when they lost their virginity. Everyone was like, don't tell Megan, Of course, I was the last to lose my virginity at 19. And then at that time, I kind of, there's all these phases of getting to know God and maturing. My prayer used to be like, please let me look like one of the lead seekers from In Vogue. He actually answered that prayer. Shout out to In Vogue. But then, as you get older, your prayers mature, your relationship with God matures. You start to get perspective and learn. And
that's
so,
definitely true. The older you get, you pray differently.
And these last 2 years has been especially a journey, but it's such an incredible journey.
The older you get, you stop treating prayer like it's Santa Claus. Because, remember back in the day, every time we prayed for something, there's always something that we wanted. $1 million, a Lambo, just any kind of gift or sign from God to make my life easier. But honestly, the older I've gotten, man, my prayers is all about family, time, health. She's on it with that one.
The place that I'm in now, where I just have such a freedom in God and just such a trust that God knows my heart and knows who I am even better than I do. And so, it's been a really, really beautiful place, a really beautiful journey.
Damn,
the last
son.
2 years where your faith has been tested.
For sure. Not this past year. This past year, I'm like, Lord, I know you're going to do what you do, and I trust you. And making sure that I was there to give that to Jonathan. That's what I felt that I was there to do. Yeah. My faith has never wavered in that, in that instance. But going through the divorce, that shook me to my core. I was just like, but Lord, you asked me to be celibate, and I was. You told me who to marry. I married that person. I try to do everything to the best of my ability, and know I didn't do everything perfect, but I don't know that I could have done anything different, if I'm being honest. And so I was just
That's
like,
real.
why is this happening? My greatest fear was for my husband to leave me after 10 years of marriage, the way that my dad and my mom separated. And that's exactly what happened. And it was just like, I don't understand this. And so it was a lot of prayer, a lot of evaluation, a lot of learning about myself even. It was a lot of realizing the place that we both were in. It was a lot of just like rediscovering God and realizing that sometimes the way that we see or understand things. It's not that it's not true. It's just you do come into different seasons. And I had to accept that if this isn't something I've chosen, but it's something that God has allowed, then God has allowed it for a good reason. And I think that we both have grown from it tremendously. I think that now I think that what at the time I was so mad at Devon, but now I think what he did was very brave. And I think that it was very,
Number one, I didn't even know the dude is the one that initiated the divorce. That's wild. I thought it was Megan.
very scary thing to know that the church and all the people, everyone was going to be like, well, this is not what a man of God or a woman of God does, you know. And of course there were a lot of people who were like, well, Megan must have done something, and I'm like, what, you know. But I think that in order to grow to the place that we've grown, I think we absolutely were supposed to be married for that amount of time. And I think we got the best and the benefit out of it. And I think he taught me a lot and I taught him a lot. And we took a lot, we gave a lot. But we're still friends. And you know, as he said, the love is, you know, transitioned into something else, but it's still love. And I don't regret anything. And I'm super thankful for the time that we were married, and I'm super thankful for what I learned. And I think that
And you can learn something from that too. That's if there's ever a blueprint to how to break up with someone in a healthy manner, is to still maintain a level of love, respect, and a bit of a friendship. Like whether you believe in friends after a relationship, it's completely up to you. I think it's a little differently when you've been married to someone. But these are two mature individuals who I guess kind of felt like they reached their peak. And this is why I always say, bro, you can never judge a relationship by its cover. There is no such thing as relationship goals, because her and her husband were always the ones praying, always the ones together. They always looked united. They always looked solid in their faith. They looked like they just prayed every single day. And even they broke apart. There is no blueprint to the perfect relationship, son. It's the wildest algorithm, Rubik's Cube that God has displayed on earth, which is kind of like finding someone with completely different traits than you and making it work perfectly, aligning your differences with their differences. It's almost impossible. Sometimes you could check 10 out of 10 boxes and something still goes wrong. Like,
I love now in a different capacity, because when your absolute worst fear happens, now there's nothing to be afraid of anymore.
In that situation, you like, I prayed for this. I was everything, God, everything you asked me to do, I did.
Yeah.
Did you feel at that moment that as the marriage is starting to dissolve, did you feel like a failure?
No, I don't think so, because I feel like we had almost 10 successful years of marriage. I feel like,
damn, they were married that long.
I feel like I got so much from it that has made me better and has helped me grow. And I feel that he feels the same way. So I don't feel like it was a failure by any means. I just didn't understand it. Because I was like, but this, you say forever, it means forever,
Right.
you know? And that wasn't the case, you know? But I think that part is the part that I struggle with the most, because I would have never gotten a divorce under any circumstances. And I don't know if that's always the right thing,
Right.
you know? And it's not that anything bad was going on. Nobody was cheating, nothing like, you know, and I won't get into why we divorced,
Right.
but I don't know if being married for the sake of just
Societal, because society says you.
well, because of religion,
Yeah.
you know, I think you really have to have a relationship with God and see how God is moving you. And sometimes it's not going to make sense to anybody else. And that's okay. It's not for it to make sense to anybody else. You just have to be in tune with
Prior
God's
to you
telling
being married
Yeah.
to someone, a minister,
Yeah.
you being being a woman of faith,
Yeah.
belief,
Yeah.
would you have felt this way had you not grown through that? About not necessarily like being married.
Oh no, I think I still would have been like, no, you get married. It says in the word, y'all better work it out. You better figure it out. You better do something.
Okay.
And I think if you can, you should.
Right.
But again, I think that sometimes God moves us in ways that it may seem contradictory to other people's perception or how they see or read the word or literally what it says. But I think that's why we have to be very clear on having a relationship with God, not just a religion with God. We have to be very clear on hearing from God. And that's got to be the compass, period, the relationship with God. And not the relationship where you're not really hearing that and you just want to do what you want to do and you want a reason to do it or an excuse to do it, but really knowing if that's what you're hearing God to tell you to do, no matter what anybody thinks or anyone says, you got to move the way God's telling you to. And that's just that.
Outside of your closest friends, your support, do people or did people know that you had such a close relationship with God?
I think people see what they want to see. If you go back to every men's magazine that I was on the cover of, and you realize that I never wore a bathing suit, I never wore lingerie, and then you look in those interviews from 1999, 2001, 2004, 2000, you will always see that I always said, I am a Christian, I believe in God, I'm not going to do anything that would disappoint God, God is my compass. I've always talked about God. And I think that sometimes when people go, oh, well, it's the cover of a men's magazine, well, for me, that's not a conviction of mine. I don't feel that God is concerned with what I'm wearing. And so if that is not my conviction, it says in the Bible, he who has faith have it to himself before God. Happy is he who does not condemn himself in what he proves. Meaning, and then it goes on to talk about if you don't really believe that that's what God approves, then you are sinning. But if you really believe that between you and God, then that's that, period. That's what that is for you. And so that's the tattoo I have on my hand, which even that is like, oh, you shouldn't pierce your butt. Well, for me, it's a reminder to not go too far down the religious rabbit hole,
Right.
and stay in the relationship with God. God, what do you say?
Right.
And so for me, I never had a conviction about that kind of thing. My feeling was like, I want to get these words that I'm saying about God and how much I love God and how God is the head of my life. I want to get this to the people who are going to pick up this magazine, because I'm not going to get to them any other way. And most of the other people in the church, they're not going to get to them at all.
Right.
So if I feel comfortable and I don't feel like I'm doing something wrong, then I'm just going to be authentically me, and I'm going to reach other people that other people don't, just by being who I'm called to be and being authentically that.
Before you take a role, do you always pray on it?
Majority of the time. Sometimes I just feel in my spirit, I'm like, okay, good, I feel good about this. If I'm not sure, then I pray about it. If I've ever felt that God's like, no, that's not what I want you to do, then I just won't do it, period.
Wow.
Even if I want to do it, period, I won't do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's easy when you have that kind of faith and you say you've been walking, since you were about 19?
I've been saved since I was 12.
12.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lost your virginity at 19. So you've been on this road. You've been on this road for the better part of 2 decades.
Yeah.
So the highs and the lows, you never question, like, it's God's will, and you, whatever he decides, whatever his will.
Yeah, I think that I have to accept that, because you can't accept one thing and not accept the
Yes.
other. And so I trust God, and even like, you know, when the divorce happened, I was mad at God. I was
Really?
like, what the hell? Like, I was so mad, but I was just like,
But you never questioned it.
I didn't question if I was going to be okay. I questioned, well, why do it?
Right.
What was the point? And
Allow us
over
to come
time,
together, and then
yeah.
here we are.
Yeah, and then also I was like, you knew this was my worst fear. Like, why? You know, and then, you know, over the years,
God don't
it's,
care
you know,
about your
almost
fears.
been like 3 years now. So, over the years, I'm always revealed a lot more. And every time I'm revealed a lot more, I'm just really in gratitude and thankful that I married someone that was so wonderful, and that is so wonderful, and that we had that time, and that we grew together, and just all the things.
Right.
And so I don't believe that anything's in vain. That's probably the only moment where I was just like, okay, Lord.
Does she have any kids?
But now I'm like, okay, Lord, thank you.
You mentioned Tyler Perry. You're in this new movie,
about to Google
Divorce
that.
in the New Black.
A divorce in the black.
Divorce in the Black.
Yeah.
Because
What?
Divorce in the Black. So obviously, if I'm having to guess, you were divorced.
Yes.
You're a divorcee.
Oh, yes.
How much, having gone through that,
Uh-huh.
were you able to fall back on and says, okay, and boom, here we go.
All of it. All of it. Because even though she's in a very different situation than I was in, it's still that reality of expecting that your life is going to go one way, and then suddenly realizing it's going to go a totally different way.
Mhm.
And then you are trying to figure out what you're supposed to do, and having to kind of
Mhm.
learn yourself, but realizing that you've also changed and you've grown, and then you having to kind of calibrate your mind to not be sad, and not, you know, like, you have to go through the sadness. You definitely have to go through the pain, the crying, and the process, which is a process, I think, to some degree, you never don't like not have it in some way, shape, or form, as long as you don't let it make you bitter. You let it make you better. But
That's real
the
shit.
process that she had to go through to go, okay, now I'm in this next phase of life, and I'm going to embrace this, and I'm going to get excited about this, and I'm going to figure out what I want and what makes me happy.
Right.
And having complete freedom after that to be like, okay, it's my world, what I want to do with it, you know? And so I think many of the moments that Ava had, there's a scene where I'm running, and, you know, it was just like, I was just so there. I knew exactly where Ava was, and I was just so there with her, and I was pleased to be able to gift her with the realest, truest, rawest emotion of what that reality was.
Is it easier to play a role when you're familiar? Not just a character, but you're like, I've been there, I've done
Yeah.
that. I actually know what a divorcee is going through in this very moment. I can tell you
Yeah.
what it's like.
Yeah, I think it is easier, although there is your experience and their experience.
Yeah, because you might not have gone through the reason why she got divorced might not be the reason why you got the divorce.
Right.
So it has to be different. I mean, I'm reading that marriage gone wrong. Maybe it's domestic violence, maybe it's
Right, right.
finances, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But at the end of the day, is that big D. E at the end.
Yes. Yeah. And the only difference is how does this person download and process it?
Yes.
Like, for instance, with my character in Harlem, it's the first time where I go, oh, okay, she's a Gemini. So I am going to pursue all Gemini traits. So if you come at her like this, Megan might get indignant and be like, but a Gemini is actually going to go, wait a second, and get introspective, and a totally different gear is going to hit for them. And so
I could care less for the zodiac signs, but I could respect that deep level of preparation for a role when you're considering the minor details. Okay, if this person's a Libra, I need to incorporate some of the Libra traits. Gemini. That's impressive. That's some deep study of a character like that. It goes to show you what actors and actresses really put in terms of playing this role on television. It's not just remembering lines. It's almost like reconfiguring who you are as a human being and creating a new. That's dope. Like that level of deep thinking for a role.
that's the only difference.
Impressive.
Is even though I can understand where the character's at, distinguishing the difference between not just Ava and Megan's journeys, but Ava and Megan's mentalities and their bandwidth for pain and their how much did they hide from their family, how much did they share, what's the dynamic between her mother versus her, all those things. That would probably be the only thing. But do I think it's easier in general? Yes, because you already have a leg up, because you already have
Experience.
such a rich well to pull from.
Should we view divorce as bad?
I don't know anymore. I don't know.
Prior to you going through divorce, how did you view divorce?
That's
Prior to it
a
happening
good
to you,
question.
How would you view it?
I felt like
That's a better question.
any other reason besides domestic violence, I'm like, y'all better figure that out. But now I don't know. I think that what I experienced made me less judgmental about an experience that somebody else is having that I don't know what it is. And I can't say that it's bad or good for anybody. All I can say is that it hurt a lot for me, but I think that it also was a blessing to both of us in a way. And not because it happened, but because if it had to happen and that was a part of our story, we both got so much from it.
Did you feel you let people down?
Yes and no, because I think I felt that I let people down a bit with the weight, because I never said to someone, well, this is what I think you should do.
Right.
And I never pursued making the book like, look how I did it, guys. This is what it was never that. It was always people asking and inquiring me, saying, oh, this is the spaces that I'm in. This is what God's telling me to do right now. People being curious. And from that coming a book talking about our experience, not necessarily telling people to go do it, but saying this is why it worked for us. And this is why, we believe in it. And I still believe in the weight. And I still believe that it worked for us. I think that what didn't work for us were the reasons why we ultimately, divorced. But I think that, I think the weight allowed us to get the full benefit. And I think it's the reason that we're still friends to this day. I think it's the reason that we walked into the room with both of our divorce attorneys and, but you look great. Look at you. You've been working out. Yeah, you look great too. Da-da-da. How you doing? And they looking like, y'all getting divorced?
You're right.
And we're like, yeah. And they're like,
But you see,
okay, y'all just, okay, and when they see us, we see each other in the street, people tense up around us, and I'm like, how are you doing? And it's
Right.
just like, and it's genuine love, and I think a lot of that really is because of the weight and the way that we got to know each other and the quality of the human being and the trust that was there. Even if there, was disappointment at the end, I can look at Devon and say, that's a fucking good person.
wow.
And I'm thankful for that time.
Divorce in the Black will launch globally on Prime Video July 11th. Want to join Club Shay Shay?
That's
Become an
dope.
official member by hitting that subscribe button.
That's probably the healthiest divorce story I've ever heard in my life. You know what I mean? Like that was kind of dope to get that kind of perspective from Megan. My takeaway, honestly, damn, there's just like so many thoughts, bro. So much effort and energy goes into the process of being in love, right? It's the emotional adrenaline that you get. It's the comfort that you feel when you feel like you found the right person. Love is like an intense emotion, and marriage is a direct, I guess, the next step towards it. But as passionate and great as love feels, bro, emotions are very fickle. Emotions, and I think Will Smith hit this on the nail one time when he goes like, yo, you can never be responsible for somebody else's happiness. Happiness is something that's within you. Happiness is something that you got to hold yourself accountable towards. It's an impossible mission to ask someone to be responsible for your happiness. And when you look at stories like this one, for example, you realize that these people are great individuals. Her husband, Megan Good, these people are positive, uplifting, people of God, people of faith, great humanitarians, and yet it still didn't work for whatever reason. And that's because you can't have someone be responsible for your own happiness. It's a natural process of life where man plans and God laughs. You could do everything right, and I've shared this in some of my other videos, bro, when I evaluate my other relationships compared to this healthy relationship that I'm in now, where in my last relationship, I felt like I did everything right. If I wasn't, I'm not gonna claim perfection, but let's just say I was 9 out of 10. Supportive, loving, caring, influential, consistent, innovative, on point, respectful. I did all these things right, and yet my last relationship still didn't work out, and I went through my own trials and tribulations, and it taught me that man plans and God laughs. You could do everything in your book to make a successful relationship, to have a family, and then for whatever reasons, typically around emotions or even finances, those things are fickle. And a lot of respect, it's the hardest decision. I always say this, bro, and if you ever leave with anything, I want you to leave with this quote: the hardest thing you'll ever have to do in life, outside of burying a family or a relative, the hardest thing you'll ever do in life is walk away from someone you truly are in love with. It's one of the hardest things, and it takes someone mature, it takes someone that's deep and in tune with who they are to make a decision to walk away from someone as great as Megan Good, or as great as anybody that you've ever fallen in love with, because there's a disconnect, and that's within. That's not something that you need therapy for. That's not something that someone could talk you out of. It's kind of like that gut feeling when you already know. And granted, a lot of people are ashamed to be divorced nowadays because it kind of feels like you failed or you just weren't good enough. But Megan gave us a very powerful perspective. There's so much lessons in walking away from that because you don't know what doors God has intended for you. You may think that marriage is the answer to the next steps in your life, but little do you know, you might honestly be married to the wrong person. And God is like, yo, you think this is the person for you? Wait till 30 years. I'm gonna let you think this is it so you can learn and gain whatever you need to gain, but there will be a moment where you walk away. And surely nobody wants to walk away, but this story called life, man, we really don't control nothing. You know, God just gives us time to mess up and figure things out, but take the experience with you. Lauren London said this in an interview recently, not recently, but like over a year ago, where she goes like, you don't keep people, you experience them. And it kind of helped her compartmentalize the death of Nipsey, because it was just like understanding that it was an experience and not something that was taken away from her, helped her deal with the pain. Like, this was a great time. This wasn't something that was mine. This was just a great moment, and it's real. We do experience a lot of people. You experience marriage. You experience divorce. None of this shit is for us. We can't take any of this shit to the grave. So the only thing we could do is appreciate the experience and grow and move forward and walk in the line of God. And you never know what he might have for you walking down the road. But this was a very good interview between Megan Good and Shannon Sharpe. And I'm your host, Gabos, and we're going to rock out, man. I'm going to holler at you guys next video. Mamba out. She still look good. You know what I'm saying? Megan Good looked good since 21 Questions, bro. And shit, hold on before we leave the people, man. Before we leave the people. Mamba out. Woo, child.